Hello everyone, welcome to the very last class. Today I wanted to have a review session. I just finished up the making questions for the final. I made up three questions and you should answer all of three questions. And three questions, the point of three questions are same, 20 points for each. And I want to start with the beginning of these two Koreas, how these two Koreas consolidate its power. And then especially we talked about like 성분 system a lot. So 성분 system, there are three main systems. That's three main classes. The first class is core, and second is rebirthing or base class, and third one is hostile class. You don't have to know 51 different categories, but 30% belongs to core and 40% to wavering, and the last 30% to hostile. And based on this 성분 system, only a selected personnel could stay in Pyongyang, right? That's what I talked about. And then wavering and hostile classes comprise about 16 million people and accounting approximately 72% of the entire population of North Korea. So most of North Koreans belong to either wavering or hostile class. And if you or belong to how determined uh, this classification. So the most important thing is family background. So the core, to be a core, the your ancestor or father must be either pro-independence fighters or revolutionaries or factory workers or peasants, but usually like pro-independence fighters or revolutionaries. And the wavering, to be entered wavering class, it's ordinary North Koreans. So most of North Koreans belong to this wavering class. The third one is the hostile group, is either landowners, religious leaders, or there are families in South Korea, or if you had the experience supporting North South Korea, so you will be the hostile. So you have to focus on studying how this 성분 system contribute to consolidating power in North Korea. 성분 system has been the most crucial factors in determining North Korea's access to employment necessary for livelihood, advancement to certain education institutions, as well as access to other services, including the opportunity to live in favored areas, especially in Pyongyang. So as I said, living in Pyongyang is something special in North Korea, or going to Kim Il-sung University is something very special for North Koreans. And then how could you go to Kim Il Sung University, or how would you be a uh, how would you live in Pyongyang? It depends on what kind of 성분 system you are in. That's the most important factors. And then we also talked about how the Kim Il Sung uh, consolidates power. One of the 성분 system. The other one is he adopted his title as a 수령 or great leaders. 수령 means actually the great leader, or chairman or hero. And this is the last solutions to consolidate his power is camp. The as you can see, like we talked about like there is a political camp in North Korea, and some camp you can even meet your families like that, and then as you can see, there are some. So we watched the video like how the someone who survivor from this camp, political camp, and then she talked about like she described like how horrible it was, if you remember. And this was one of the method to consolidate his power. And then South Korea also has very take the very similar patterns. It means South Korea now became democracy, but it wasn't. Like at first, Syngman Lee became the first president, and then he could be a president because he was selected by the United States, as I said. But we have to understand how he adopt policies for his consolidation, his power. The first one is enactment of National Security Act. So National Security Act aims to use anti anti-socialism or anti-communism. So anti-communism works quite well to control or give a pressure to opposition so that the Kim Il-sung could maintain his power. And we talked about like several events, the enactment of National Security Act. We talked about 사사오입, right? So 사사오입 is hard to explain in English, but as I said, it's a 사사 five constitution. 사 is four, so it means four, five constitution. So this one, as I said, he wanted he amended the constitution to maintain his power was part of it. And we talked about the anti-nationalist punishment act. We talked about the anti-national punishment act, and that act was aimed to get rid of the during the Japanese colonizations, some Koreans cooperated to the Japanese colonization. We wanted to get rid of this this uh, the Japanese collaborators, but Syngman Lee actually didn't want this law, right? I mean, even though the Anti-Nationalist Punishment Act was passed, but it wasn't good for the Syngman Lee because he hired a lot of Japanese collaborators for his power. So he employed a lot of policemen or military personnel, and these people used to work for the Japanese government. So if this law has been passed, then Syngman Lee was worried, what if he loses power? So so at first there was an anti-nationalist special activities investigation committee was formed, but he has the event of fraction praxia. So he's saying that about 10 active lawmakers were arrested and incited on charge of being North Korean espionage activities, arrested by March 1952 and March 1950. It's about this. So he was worried, what if he lose power? So he make the story that some lawmakers has a connected to North Korea. So about 10 active lawmakers were arrested. So because of that event, Fraktia event, this anti-nationalist punishment act was completely disappeared. And then this, because of this, the South Koreans actually lost the chance to get rid of the Japanese collaborators. That's what we thought about. And then there was a election fraud during Syngman Lee's regime, and we talked about it. And then it's one of the way to consolidate his power too. But we talked about his power couldn't last. I mean, he was in power quite a long time, but he loses power because of April 19th revolution. So you have to compare how these two different Koreas consolidate his power. That's what I wanted to ask to you. And then last of it, it's about North Korea economy. And then I want you to focus on North Korean economy. I mean, this North during the North Korean economy, like public distribution system works for consolidated power too, because it started quite early 1947, and then the government started to provide a certain amount of food to the people, and then that actually works to extract royalty from the normal people, normal North Korean people. It might be part of it too. And then successful economic policy you definitely should talk about. And then I want you to discuss the faction. There was a several faction to get rid of Kim Il Sung power, but it all failed. And then important thing that you have to talk about discuss is Juche ideology. The Juche ideology is self-reliance in everything. So self-reliance in politics, self-reliance in defense, self-reliance in economy. So this ideology is the main ideology to consolidate his power too, as you see. And I will show another slide for you. Hold on. We talked about quite a lot, so I mean, South Korea before the democracy, we had another military regime. There was Park Chung-hee and Chun Doo-hwan. But you don't have to discuss all these things about South Korea. I don't want to hear much about South Korea, but I want to hear much about North Korea. So there was some trial to uh, rid of get rid of the Kim Il Sung. It's one of the factions, Kapsan faction. It's described in page 883. So Kapsan faction was a political force formed by around Park Geum-chul with a key figure like Lee Seung-un. You don't have to know all these people, and then I want you to know. I want you to discuss why there was a Kapsan faction, and then how Kapsan faction couldn't be successful in North Korea. And then this one is 10 principle for establishment of monolithic ideological system. So this can be part of the consolidation power to maintain Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Il's regime. This is the major thing that I want you to discuss for about very beginning of the class. So we talked about in the very beginning how these two Koreas separated, and then we talked about how these two Koreas consolidated and after the establishment. The important thing I want you to discuss again is the recent one. Recent one is we talked about a lot North Korean economy, why North Korean economy gone really bad. Especially I emphasize on outdoors march. That's what you have to discuss too. So this is might be very important things for North Korea. So North Korea's economy stagnated because, as I said, their policy, 선군 policy, military first policy. So military first policy means everything that their North Korean's economy should focus on military but not other things. So their economy is distorted. And as I said, the North Korea they do not much focus on light industry, and then the problem is they also did not focus much on agriculture, even though they do not have enough arable, arable land. That was the problem. And then of course there was some plan strategy to be developed in terms of economy, but there was Adolph's March, and then I want you to discuss why there was Adolph's March with several perspectives. So as I said, Adolph's March, because of Adolph's March, many people were actually died from the starvation, and then I explained there is direct and indirect reason for Adolph's March. And then I want you to discuss what is indirect and what is direct cause of Adolph's March. As I said, the direct cause is natural disaster, and there was heavy flood, destroyed farmland and infrastructure, and there was heavy flood because of deforestations. And then you have to discuss why there was deforestations, and that why deforestation has linked to Adolph's March. And then this is the picture of the heavy severe flood in Korea. And then I want you to spend some time to discuss what's the result of this Adolph's March. So Adolph's March, the first result is public distribution system is completely collapsed. Before that, there was some amount of grain that the government used to provide, but not anymore after the Adolph's March. And then we also talked about the market economy, 장마당, the development of market economy. So there was 장마당 illegally before Kim Jong-il, but Kim Jong-il began to recognize the ownership of crops grown in private gardens, and the role of significance of market started to grow. So that means what? Like North Korea started to adopt some liberal economy, right, in North Korea. So I mean, there was already like private ownership and liberal economy, but they did not recognize it officially, but they did. And then there is some movement to focus on some development of light industry, such as A3 consumer goods. We have to discuss lengthy of this 장마당. And then the result of this Adolph's March is emergence of 꽃제비. And then I want you to know what is 꽃제비 and how did it happen. And also this is number of North Korean defector, and then this number of North Korean defector has been significantly increased after this Adolph's March. And then yeah, this is about Adolph's March. And what's the result of Adolph's March globally too? So this one actually shows that how North Korea isolated, right? So I want you to spend lengthy discussions on cause and the effect in various ways. That's the another thing that I want you to emphasize. The last one that I want you to spend some time is the very last class we talked about. So we talked about Kim Dae-jung's policy, right? Kim Dae-jung became president in 1998. His one of the major policy was sunshine policy. So I want you to spend some time to discuss what is sunshine policy, and then what's the difference between maybe conservative political party and non-conservative political non-conservative. I mean, he is very leftist, and he's actually the first leftist party leader. And then I want you to spend time that what he did. what was objective. This is objective, and then what is the result? The first one is Inter-Korean Summit. So this is the first time that two leaders of two Koreas met in 2000. That was very significant moment. And then we also talked about various economic projects that uh, during the Sunshine Policy took place. The first one is Kaesong Industry Complex. And then we also talked about Kumgang tourist reasons. So there was a project for Kumgang tourism, but Kumgang tourism stopped because South Korean tourists were shot and killed. So this is Kumgang mountain picture. And then we some established the built Inter-Korean Economic Cooperation Office. So what's the aim of it? And then we try to also have a project reconnection of railroad. So the two important railroad was, as I said, Gyeonggi line and Donghae line. So Gyeonggi line is here. Gyeonggi line. This is Gyeonggi, and this is Donghae. So this was very significant reconnection of railroad, but it failed. I mean, we couldn't keep doing, and we had some engagement in dialogue and family reunion. So not only economic perspective, but also there was some other improvement. And then this is the status of Kaesong Industrial Complex. This shows that what kind of area the Kaesong Complex, how many like people actually worked, and this was the result, right? And as you can see, this is south, this is north, and this is like economy impact. And this actually shows clearly that North Korea, I mean, the Sunshine Policy has a good impact on South Korea and both at the same time North Korea. But which one get more benefit? That's, I mean, depending on how do you think. There was also critics, and then I want you to discuss what is critics as well. And this was comparison the presidents how much money they spend for North Korea, and this is the North Korean aid by international society. And then we discuss the difference between 이명박 government and Kim Dae-jung government. 이명박 government is from Conservative Party, and Kim Dae-jung government is leftist party. And then his policy is quite different from the Kim Dae-jung, but we can summarize it three words: denuclearization, openness, and 3,000 initiative. Uh, this policy proposed that if North Korea abandoned its nuclear program and committed to denuclearization, South Korea would support North Korea's economic development. So its precondition is for to dialogue or cooperation is about giving up North Korea's nuclear weapon. And then if North Korea decide to give up its nuclear weapon, then South Korea will help to raise North Korea's per capita income up to $3,000. And this otherwise, there is no dialogue whatsoever, right? And the South Korean government, the Kim Il-sung government, emphasized on North Korean human rights. So they emphasize North Korean human rights to criticize North Korea's internal matter. And then we put some sanctions, and then there was May 24 measure too. And then this was the result of the Lee Myung-bak government's North Korean policy. The first one was Cheonan incident, and second is Yeongpyeong Iceland shelling. So there was two conflict between the two Koreas. And then we talked about why North Korea stick to having nuclear weapons. And then I spent some times why North Korea. I mean, there was some times here, sometimes that the North Korea, we are not sure their real intention, but there was some times that they wanted to. They signed the Geneva Agreement. Geneva Agreement is about nuclear free in North Korea. So there was some trials, but these North Koreans um, completely failed, and then they declared nuclear weapon possessions. And this is why, I mean, I want you to spend some time why North Korea stick to developed its nuclear weapon program. So this is about, I think, the main things for this class. So first one, I want you to think about commonality between the two Koreas. I think I already mentioned some in during the class. And second, I want you to think about critical juncture that change brought about complete change in North Korean economy. That is Adolf's March. And I want you to discuss the lengthy discuss on why and impact, cause and impact. And third one, I want you to think about what kind of positions that South Korean government should posture, right? By comparing the Kim Dae-jung government and Lee Myung-bak government. If you understand what I said today, then I think you won't have a problems for preparing or answering the questions for the final. Good luck, everyone. I look forward to seeing your answers. Bye.